coach workshop in the last 2 weeks. So we've been around the province, been to Kitchener, been to Sudbury, been to St Catherine's, been to Ottawa, and now we're in the GTA. So a good geography lesson for me. Really appreciate you giving up your time tonight. We know how much time you give up to the game, day in, day out, week in, week out, but this is a great turnout. We really appreciate you all being here. We're very mindful in regard to long-term player development implementation. We haven't consulted club head coaches as a group yet. And tonight is very much that opportunity. We're aware of how critical you are in the process, but the process hasn't got to you yet, and this is what tonight's about. So 2 or 3 objectives that we're really looking to tick off tonight. The first one is to get everyone on the same page regarding long-term player development and what it means. We're going to get into some detail about what's currently happening in Ontario. We're also going to then get into specific detail about coach education, because there's lots of exciting new things happening, and there's been material go out, so it's really important we all understand that material. And then we're going to have your input into the process. So it's going to be myself and Mark presenting for a lot. If you do have questions, please feel free to pop your hand up, but you will have the opportunity for input at the end. For those that haven't met me before, I'm Alex Chiet, the new Chief Technical Officer for the Ontario Soccer Association. Sitting over here to my right is Mark Marshall, who many of you will know, who's the Manager of Coach Development. So between the two of us, we'll be going through the next couple of hours. Before we start, it's really important to get one thing out early, and that's tonight's presentation and what we're going to go through. It's not about the past, okay? We're during the past, we're moving forward. What we're here to talk about tonight is how we move forward, what the new vision is, and how we get there collectively. So we're not here to talk to what has or hasn't happened by OSA or CSA. Okay, we're here to take constructive steps moving forward and discuss the future. So if there are things you want to discuss regarding those things, this isn't the forum for that. I also understand that there's some people in this room that will have heard parts of this message before, so I appreciate your patience at times. Hopefully you pick up a few new points, but it is critical to all of us to go through this message. So we're here for 2 hours, so lock yourselves in. As I've just touched on, this is the order of information that we're going to be presenting. Did anyone see a sign on the way in tonight? On the door? Yep, 1, 2. What did it say? Louder so everyone can hear? Remove your hats. Someone's just taken the hat off. I didn't actually mean that. I didn't actually mean that. I mean something else. What do you think I meant?
Our titles.
Your titles? Yeah. We all come to this workshop tonight from a club, okay? So we're representing our club and our members. And that's to be expected. But I'm going to ask you to take your hats off tonight, because in order to move the game forward in this country and in this province, we need to do what's right for Canada and for Ontario. So as hard as it is, you need to take your hat off, okay? You need to think about what's best for players, coaches and referees, and not what's best for the particular people in your environment, because doing what's best for everyone will ultimately help you. So that's my challenge to you tonight, and it's a really important one, because as you picked up, I come from a different country. I'm a Canadian now. I'm blown away, and I repeat, blown away by the lack of unity in the game, fragmentation, and people working against each other. For such a educated, well-resourced, progressive country, how we approach the development of soccer is an embarrassment. Okay, so we need to work on that collectively. So, quote for you to absorb. Tonight's about an opportunity, and we're giving you an opportunity to contribute towards a new direction, and we need every one of you here. And as leaders in your environments, you need to offer that opportunity to others as well. This is really important. The ladder's not leaning against the right wall. Every step we take gets us to the wrong place faster. The ladder has been against the right wall, but the game's evolved. It's changed. Okay, so we need to put the ladder against the new wall now and work on that together. So we're we know that we've got the ladder against the right wall. It's how we all work together to take steps in the right direction. So a little bit of background to get us to where we are today. Canadian Sport for Life, Sport Canada's arm for injecting money into the sports sector here in Canada, developed long-term athlete development about 6 to 8 years ago. And it's a model based on principles that every national sporting organisation has to adopt. They have no choice, mandated. You have to adopt this model, long-term athlete development. So soccer is just the same as hockey, as a tennis, as any other sport. So every national sporting organisation is working with their provincial sporting organisations, we're working with their districts, and we're working with their clubs to implement this philosophy throughout sport. Now every sport is at a different stage of implementation. Within soccer, within Canada, different provinces are at different stages of implementation. What I'm trying to say is it's not a matter of when, it's how. It's how we implement this, and whether we use this as a really positive catalyst to move the game to where we need to, or whether we do this in a sort of a fragmented, disconnected manner, and we just continue to limp along. I think there's only one decision. Something that's really important to acknowledge, though, is funding pots are starting to dry up. Okay, there's grants, and you all know you've been tapping into them for years. You won't have the same resources available in the game because now a lot of these pots are dependent on clubs, on provinces, aligning themselves with long-term player development in our case. Okay, so if that's not happening, there won't be the access to the same amount of resources. Something else that's really important is to identify with good practice that's happening in other sports. Okay, and we don't often look outside of our own environment. Soccer football being the world game. We think everything we do is the best, but it's always healthy to look at what's happening in other environments. So before we get through other things, I just want to share a quick video of an attempt made to implement or a messaging for parents, for coaches in regard to long-term athlete development from another sport, from Sport Canada, from the Canadian Tennis Association. So bear with me.
Change is coming to tennis, and kids are leading the way. It's called 10 and Under Tennis, and it's a fun way for your kids to really learn the game. With courts and equipment modified to fit them, kids will develop faster and better and enjoy themselves along the way. So get your kids involved now. With 10 and Under Tennis, every child can learn to love the game.
Young kids don't play soccer on a full pitch, so why should they play tennis on a full court? Support tennis tens.
I did say that Roger hasn't been to parts of Ontario, but generally he is right. So a good message there, an important education message. Did it make sense? Have we seen this? Is it new? Tough audience. Okay, we will progress. So the Canadian Soccer Association's version of long-term athlete development is long-term player development. And we're preaching to the converted in this room. We're all aware of that documentation. You know what it is. This was developed back in 2007, 2008. Got an Inside Soccer magazine here from November, December 2007. It's got about a 8-page spread dedicated to long-term player development. Yet, still a lot of people within the sport don't know what it is. Okay, this is back in 2007, and we'll come to this as we progress. From an OSA perspective, there was approval of implementation of the coaching pathway, the coaching courses associated with long-term athlete development back in 2009. I think at that time it was probably understood more as a coaching initiative rather than a wider framework to work within. from an OSA implementation stance, from what we have done to implement long-term player development, we've been through a challenging period. There's been staff turnover and challenges, as I'm sure you're all aware of. But despite of that, there's been really progressive clubs and districts. So there's been some really good progress made in places within the province. Within some of your own environments, you are implementing this material. People have seen what's coming down the pipe and have taken steps to implement it, which is great. Okay, so it's just that it's not coordinated and it's not consistent. That's the challenge, and that's what we're working to progress. And I think people's understanding of it slightly differs. Current situation, so within the last 6 months, we brought together a group of technical advisory council, so technical minds within the province. Do you guys, there's still seats around if you want to. There's a few over this side and a few more down here if you want to grab a seat. This group came together back in June. We spent 2 days together working out how do we implement this, because it's been around for a while, but we haven't tackled it. We haven't implemented it. Obviously, it hasn't got there. Out of that meeting came 3 clear priorities: coaching, communication, and I lumped a few things together: competitive structure, pathway, and vision. Put them all in one bucket. So those priorities were taken out of that workshop and progressed. A lot of information was developed and a report was developed. That was then condensed and a presentation was made to the board back in September, where we had a great result. Okay, a great result where implementation of LTPD was unanimously supported by the board. So we got green light to progress with this, which is a good news story. Since that meeting, the Technical Advisory Council's come back together and progress has been made, further progress has been made in those 3 priorities I outlined. And here we are today to go through a little bit of that. So the textbook definition of long-term player development is here. I'll let you read it. Again, I'm sure you've read it many times. But what I think, and part of the challenge, is this information is sat in documents that are quite high level. Okay? The Wellness to World Cup Volume 1 was a world-leading document. And great stuff. What it captions there is brilliant. But what hasn't happened is it hasn't been simplified, hasn't been condensed. The messages haven't been tailored towards different audiences. Okay, so therefore, because of that, and to be honest, there's fragmentation between CSA, OSA and districts and clubs. So that communication pipe hasn't been there. So people's interpretation has varied, and I think people have formulated on a lot of occasions their own opinion, and that's quite often based on what someone else has told them, or not interpreting things as probably they're meant to be interpreted. And there's been sort of a bit of a rumour mill, and things have been taken out of long-term player development that are seen as controversial and negative, winning and other things like this, and they've been sort of blown up a little bit and taken out of context. So what I'm going to do now is go through the 9 principles that underpin long-term player development, because we've found this is the best way, and it's helped solidify and clarify people's understanding of what long-term player development is. So we're going to go back a step to do that, to move forward. So the first principle, and I appreciate some of you may be completely literate with this, but we're going to go through it, is the 10-year rule, the 10,000 hour rule. Raise your hands who is aware of this principle. Okay, so we've got about half the room, maybe a little bit more, which is great. So to cut through it quickly, through formal, working within a club environment, training, games, through formal activity and informal activity. Informal, me with my ball against the wall, playing in the street with my neighbours, those sorts of things. Research supports that you need to acquire about 10,000 hours to reach the higher echelons of the game to become an expert. If you choose to become an expert, that's as a coach, or to be really talented as a coach, as a player, referee, 10,000 hours. And keeping in mind, that's in the right environments. Okay, so you've got the right people around you doing the right sorts of things. This is no different to a doctor or a vet who goes through their degree, does the appropriate study, and then is out working for 6 years in the right environments. You start to get pretty good at what you do. Okay, Now that's if you want to progress that way. But you're still getting a better experience further down here. Even if you get 4,000 hours rather than 1,000, you're going to be a lot better at what you do. So if we think of participation for all, people are going to have a better grounding on the skills to play the game, to stay in the game and to enjoy themselves. Fundamentals. A, B's and C's. Agility, balance, coordination. Okay, jumping, throwing, kicking, catching, dribbling. What's most important is to become an athlete first. Okay, to learn how to move, to have balance, to have coordination, to run properly. Okay, these children out there, a lot of them aren't running around. We know they're not doing the same sorts of things, climbing trees and all those sorts of things like they used to. Some basic movement patterns aren't being developed. They need to enjoy what they're doing. They need to learn how to move. When I lived in the UK for a couple of years, Sir Alex Ferguson was really outspoken at the time in this area, and there was a big push for letting the kids play. Just let the kids play. And he was really outspoken, saying, give me an athlete at 12 years old. Give me an athlete. I'll then give them 10,000 hours, and then I'll have another 10 years of use out of them within my program. Just give me an athlete. Because what he was getting was players that had come into academy systems and setups from 6 years and earlier, and all the spontaneity and creativity had been coached out of them because they'd been just drilled and drilled and drilled. They'd lost all their imagination and their ability to unlock things. They just hadn't played. Okay, and this is something that the English system is working hard at remedying and is still facing challenges. And if you follow what's happening over there, there's lots of articles that have come out about their approach towards implementing these principles within their game and the challenges that they're facing as well. Very similar things going on over there. But Sir Alex Ferguson was really outspoken on this at the time. Specialisation. So soccer is termed as an early engagement, late specialisation sport. So what that means is we play from a young age, 4, 5, come and play soccer, enjoy yourself, have fun, okay? But also, you know, and I don't want to be the person saying this, go to swimming lessons, play hockey as well, do music lessons, do other things, because when you're young you need to do a variety of things and you're learning other movement patterns and other things, which is great at this age. But as you start to get older, you want to be dropping a couple of those different sports or activities off and starting to specialise around the 12 to 13-year-old age group. And then you want to be putting the majority of your time into one sport, so you go from doing a few things to doing one thing for 45 plus weeks of the year, for 3 plus sort of sessions a week, and the environments you're in increase. If you keep doing 2 things, research says you're going to be good at 2 things rather than great at 1. And it's about that 12, 13-year-old age group where you need to start to specialise, do one thing. So a sport that is early specialisation would be what? Tennis. Sorry? Tennis? Yeah, to an extent. There's probably even other examples that further reinforce it. Gymnastics or swimming. So there at the Commonwealth Games, Olympic Games, you don't see many gymnasts over the age of 16, 17 competing at that level. Because if they're not doing the right sort of work early, they're not going to get there. Soccer's not the same as those sports. Okay, soccer's not the same. Question?
I have a question about that, because related to the community coaching information that we get.
Yeah.
They advocate the 9 to 12-year-old age group as a specific window of opportunity for technical facilities.
You're a step ahead of me. So we're right. Next point, golden years. This is what you're referring to. Yeah. So bear with me. So recognising development age is the next principle. Recognising development age is something that's critical as well, that has been lost in a lot of sport development. So here we're talking about the difference between development age and chronological age. Development age is physically, cognitively mature you are. Chronological age is actually when you're born, your date of birth. So a good concept to help illustrate this is the relative age effect, or RAE as it's referred to. Are people familiar with this? Again, raise a hand who have heard of the relative age effect. Yeah, half the room. Okay, so we'll go through it. This is research that's been done over the last decade. Lots of people are aware of it, and they're trying to change programs, but this is really important stuff. What it's shown, and it's not specific to just soccer, again, top professional sports in the world, top professional leagues. So if we take the NHL here for hockey, we take the English Premier League, we take the Series A, we take the A-League in Australia and other leagues around the world. You also take top national teams, Canadian and men, women soccer teams, English men and women soccer teams. What they've found is when they look at the age when these players were born in these teams, 85% of them, 85% are born in the first 4 months of the year. Okay, the first 4 months of the year. So you unwind this a little bit, what's that tell us? That tells us that selections and decisions are being made about players too early in their development. And what that means is the players that are getting into the acceleration programs are getting in because they're born in the first 4 months of the year, they're bigger, they're stronger, they're quicker, okay, due to when they were born. And the talent ID and selection isn't cognizant of this in many places. So once you get into these environments, you get an elevator right up to having a better chance of making it, because suddenly you're in a program where you're surrounded by the best players, you're surrounded by the better coaches in a district or a province, your frequency of training increases, okay, and you just take a one-way ticket up to the top, to a point. Whereas if you're not in that bucket, you don't get that same treatment, you don't get exposure to the same environment, and they're not getting it. So this is huge. So it's talking to us about when and how we make decisions about player selection. You talk about peak height velocity, growth spurt, 11 to 12 for females, 12 to 13 for males. So we're making selections before they've actually gone through their growth spurt, making decisions about the player's future before that's happened. Okay, so we're doing a disservice to our players. When I say we, I don't mean us in this room, I mean sport in general, and soccer a lot of the time. So we've got to understand this. And as we develop pathways for the future, we've got to make sure we have better scouting and identification and ongoing monitoring and development as well. And a really good way to illustrate this is a couple of photos. We've got 4 players here from the York Region district program. So first we've got Vital and Natasha. We're both 12 years old. Okay? We're 12 years old. Huge physical differences here. And then we've got, I think it's Donovan and Ryan, both 12 years old again. Okay, and what's great is they're both in the district program. Okay, they're both there, so we're aware of it, we're understanding that. And a lot of you will be, which is great, but over the past few years, the game hasn't been. Okay, it's something we've got to be really aware of. So the next point, which you just raised earlier, is trainability and training emphasis periods. So these critical periods of the body's responsiveness, and the golden years is that roughly that 8 to 12 year old sort of space where so much is going on in children's development, physically, cognitively, socially. There's so much change going on. This is deemed as the most critical time to influence the development of players. So what they're saying here is there's windows. There's, like, for example, there's 2 windows of speed. One falls in this development stage, another one falls later on. If coaches aren't reinforcing the right sort of work in these windows, players are missing the potential to reach the heights of the game or get a better skill set to play the game at the level that they operate at. We're depriving kids of reaching their potential if we're not understanding these principles and passing them on. This is when players go from being self-centered, worrying about themselves, to self-critical. Okay, they identify with role models. They see the player that's two years older than them, and they can catch the ball, flip it up on their neck, roll it around and do these tricks, and they're taking their ball, they're going home and they're practicing that down in the basement 24/7. And coaches need to know that. You need to feed their imagination, raise the bar, have higher expectations of them, challenge the players at this development stage. Real critical period. They start to understand concepts in the game, start to understand space, spatial awareness, being goal side, tactics. They start to process them a bit more. Before that, they don't have a clue. They don't have a Scooby-Doo. They don't. And yet we have coaches that are trying to play these formations from 7 years old and ramming things down kids' throats. They don't know. They can't process it. So really important stuff to be aware of. 4-cornered approach. So again, something that I'm sure many of you are familiar with. We're talking about developing better people as well as better players. And when we're doing this, we need to look at 4 corners. One is technical tactical, that we're all familiar with and the game knows a lot about. Physical, okay, I don't need to go into detail there. Psychological, mental, how we deal with pressure and stress in the game. And social emotional. I think those 2 bottom corners get left out a lot and are so important in identification and selection of players, nearly more important than the points above. To have the tools as a player and the coping mechanisms to deal with stress and pressure and crowd behaviour and all these other things that go on takes a skill set, takes a strong person. And again, social emotional, dealing with all the other elements of your life, other stresses and pressures and having balance, really important things. And good examples of this are Wayne Rooney, who amazing in 3 of the corners. One corner, probably maybe social emotional at times, but more so psychological. He had a few screws loose. He was a bit of a liability to his team for a little while. Okay, and Man U and England had to play with 10 men quite often because he couldn't keep his temperament under control. But Sir Alex Ferguson got him into the environment and irons that sort of corner out. Now he only gets sent off once a month rather than once a week. But generally, you get the message where we compare him to a Lionel Messi, who all day is getting cut down and fouled and being targeted, and every time he just picks up, he gets on because he's mentally strong. He understands it. He expects it. He's at a different level in regard to that element of the game. And everywhere I go, again, I hear, and it's world over, this player was on this team's books, this player was on these books, and that's great. And sometimes reasons why they haven't progressed are legitimate. But quite often, it's for a reason, because they're not good enough. Because they're a nutball. They couldn't cope with pressure. They couldn't deal with some things. So they didn't progress. It's the reality. Okay, periodization, calendar planning. So age-appropriate games for development stages, training to playing ratio. So also, we talk about 3 trainings to 1 games, and that goes up and down a little bit, but also what you're doing across a year in regard to periodization, the playing formats and numbers of players at different development stages. Really important, again, because you're stimulating the right environments for their growth. So when I hear, and no lie here, that a girls team played 8 games of a 12-game season in a 15-day period, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to work out that that's not very good periodization, and more harm than good can come from those sorts of schedules. Okay, this is not the best of the players. So these things, and again, I've chosen an extreme example, but this is happening. System alignment and integration. So huge. This is huge. So within the game, CSA, OSA, districts, clubs, working together, unity, aligned goal. It's so important. Like tonight, we've actually got Sean Fleming here down the back, who's the under-17 men's coach. He's here working with the regional players and identification, and it's great to see him here tonight as well, again, showing that alignment. We're in this together. The game needs to start working together. It's so important. This point's wider than just what we control. It also involves other people out there in the membership. Well, outside of the membership, there's municipalities, there's the education sector, there's sponsors, and some of you within your clubs already have good relationships with municipalities, with sponsors, and are bringing resources into the game to help the game grow. But these things are really important to really realise the potential of the game as we move forward. And finally, continuous improvement. So the game keeps changing. We never get to a point and it's hallelujah, we've made it. Every week the game's evolving, every day the game is changing, so we need to continue to be in touch with research, okay? World best practice, getting to international events, seeing what's going on, bringing that learning back and challenging what we do. We need to continue to grow. Really important. So those are the 9 principles. Just a few yawns, but otherwise I hope that helped. And a good quote to finish with. And again, this was from the OSA Technical Director back in 2007, and I think it really captures what we've just talked about. So, for those of us who are involved in youth development or in soccer academies, Must bear in mind that of the 16-year-olds who sign a professional contract, 16-year-olds, professional contract, 85% are out of professional football by the age of 21. So does that surprise people? Because of practice that has been common in the past. We're burning people up because of early specialisation. Okay, overuse injuries, burnout, mental fatigue, all these sorts of things. Okay, so really, really good point that I think is very powerful. Development stages. I'm not going to go into too much detail here, but you'll be very familiar with the different development stages from active start, fundamentals, learning to train. You are the golden age of learning, down to soccer for life. And as you'll see it, as it maps across, it gives you an indication of the age, a little bit of a skill descriptor, the match format, and the program. I think there's a bit of a misconception that training to train, training to compete, training to win is sometimes sort of fostered in a club environment. Generally speaking, this is where the talented pathway kicks off. This is regional, provincial, professional academies through this way. Clubs generally go from learning to train to soccer for life. And there's competitive or recreational pathways there. What I haven't reinforced enough, and what's really important, and I think and we probably all do the same thing given the environments we're in, we tend to jump always to the elite and talk about the pathway to get to the top. I can't reinforce enough that LTPD is about providing a better opportunity for everyone that plays the game. It's about retention, it's about keeping people in the game. We're doing a better job of working with players, and there being a pathway, we're going to keep people in the game for life. So this is very much about getting better quality milk, and then we're going to get better quality cream, and making sure that we keep people in our environments. Okay? Too often, we always start to talk about high performance. So this is about the coach that just wants to be a brilliant coach of under 12 girls and provide the best environment he or she can. So they need to do development specific training. They might go somewhere else to do some other development to help them with that stage. And rather than always going vertical with development, we want to have vertical and horizontal development opportunities. And this is not just for coaching, it's about the player that just wants to play for life and have fun with their friends, as well as the player that wants to play mechanic. Refereeing is the same. Okay, you want to provide opportunities for the different motivators of people that play the sport. Benefits. I'll let you have a quick read through those, and hopefully you're familiar with them. Hopefully the writing's big enough as well. While you're reading, I will reinforce. This is based on world best practice. Okay, long-term athlete development. We talked about at the start. Sport Canada, long-term athlete development, CSA, long-term player development. What they've done is just package best practice around the world together in one package, and it's really well articulated, and it's called long-term athlete development. Those principles that we've just gone through and everything that contributes to long-term player development, it's not old. It's not rocket science. This is happening and has been happening in world-leading countries for decades. Okay? I was fortunate enough in my previous role at New Zealand Football to be able to get into some of these associations. I got into the Federation, the Australian Federation, the FA, a few academies in the FA to look at player development and what was happening. My counterpart at the time got into the German Association, the Dutch Association, the Japanese Association, and a few others as well, to look at what was happening. And these principles are ingrained in these environments. That's just called player development. It's not called LTPD, it's player development, but it's all the same material, and it's ingrained. It's not new. Okay, I just want to reinforce that. I think there's a school of thought out there sometimes that this is something airy-fairy and it's new. Okay, now we're going to touch on, we've been through LTPD, talked enough about that. Now we're going to talk about what's happening on Ontario. Okay, so where we currently are, to get a sense of the reality we operate in. I don't want to be, I hope I don't offend people here, but I think it's important to be real. We need to understand what's currently happening and be accepting of what's currently happening to move forward. So I think we'll all agree that we've talked about there's no unity or consistency or alignment. Okay, we are all doing different things generally. Leadership hasn't been there, nationally, provincially, districts, clubs. Been infrequent, hasn't been consistent. The governance structure is a challenge, okay? Making decisions, length of time to make decisions, who's making decisions. There's a complete overdose on rules. I can't believe the amount of rules here. I have lived and played in a few different countries. I've never come across anything quite like this. And I think credibility isn't good. Like, you don't need me to tell you that. Okay, OSA is a bad word in a lot of places. Okay, CSA is to people as well. We've got to improve that. Okay, we've got to improve that. Really important. We're going to work together. Coaching, quantity and the quality isn't there. We're comparing ourselves to the world standards. It's not there. Okay, we don't have enough coaches, and we don't have enough of the quality of coaches at every different development stage. With a heavy reliance on volunteers, heavy reliance, and that's not uncommon. And it's the same in other countries, but we don't do a good job of putting tools and resources and training and support around the volunteers that are helping. Remembering that a lot of the volunteers are players' first experience of the game. The people that we're not doing too much to help are giving children their first experience of the sport. Our learning facilitators, okay, the old instructors, being termed learning facilitators now, the people that are coaching the coaches, we haven't supported them, it's been infrequent, just off you go, here's your bag of balls and blackboard, it's now a projector and go and deliver a course. We haven't been growing them and developing them. These are things that are really important if we want to move the game to where it needs to be moved. And I've got a bit of information here that I think reinforces this point. So there was a survey that went out about 5 months ago to clubs and to districts. Do we recall receiving it? Anyone in this room actually filled it out on behalf of your club? Good. Yep. So from the survey that went to districts, recreational coaches generally, no qualifications, which I'm sure is not a surprise. 50% of districts do not deliver coaching courses. 35% of districts offer extra coaching support. So out of the CSA content that OSA deliver, only 35% do anything outside of that to further support and develop coaches. And LTPD awareness and understanding, low. Okay, so and this was this year, so low. A lot of people didn't even know what it was, which it's illustrated by the point I made earlier. Clubs, 31% were not aware of long-term player development. 58% never have held an OSA coaching course. 47% offer additional training and support for coaches. And what do we think the average qualification of us here is as a group of a club head coach? Some people know the answer. Pre-B, okay, which is pretty low. By international standards, very low. Okay, so these are things we've got to improve. These are things that, we've got a benchmark now to work towards and to measure ourselves against as we improve. Communication, another real huge challenge. So audiences can't be reached. There's filters. So we can't get something into the hands of every coach in the province. Okay, we can't even get things to districts sometimes or past districts. We haven't got a hope in hell of getting things to parents. Okay, so we need to be able to do these things. I've heard examples of districts and clubs that haven't passed on OSA messages for whatever reason, whether they disagree with them or I have heard that their membership wasn't ready for them. Ready for what? Ready for communication? So, we've got some work to do here. And this leads to disconnect and rumours. And actually, an example of that, I had a phone call from someone in this room a few weeks back saying, I hear the new coaching content in 2012 is being put on hold, it's not being delivered. And I've heard it from a few different people. I'm going, well, you're talking to the Chief Technical Officer, and it's the first I've heard of it. But people genuinely believe that it wasn't happening, okay, because other things creep out. And again, to illustrate the point in regard to our challenges with communication, go back to the survey. What do you think the response rate was of the districts? So remember, an audience that we can confirm will get the message into their inboxes. 45%. Okay, 45%. So not even half of the people we know where they are and we can get them to the inbox filled in the survey. And clubs, what percent of clubs do you think responded to the survey? Go on, have a stab. 30. Divide that by 2 and take a bit off. 12%. Okay? And look, I won't labour on it, but this is who we need to grow the game with together. Okay, we're all in this together, and we can't even do these basic things. And when we talk about growing the game and working together, this is exactly what's going to change. We'll move on. Participation drop-off. Now, before I show you this information, I will put it in context. This is material from the summer season, the outdoor season from 2005 through to 2010. We haven't compared this information to other sports, but the trends are very similar. I think what we're showing you here, and we will have to do that research soon, is a very significant drop-off, and the trends we're seeing here, while common, I think ours are very significant. So let's have a look. So in 2005, I'll grab the little pointer. So this is male and females combined. Okay. So under 5, a group of players, we've mapped them from when they entered the game at under 5 right through the same age group. So under 5 in 2005, we had 25,000. Under 11 in 2010, we've got about 8 or 9,000. So we've lost 50% of our membership. Okay, and that age group is working their way through. The next age group, under 7 in 2005, so we had about 28,000. So as they've worked their way through to 2010, they're under 13, got about 18,000. So again, about a 40% drop-off. Now, this is, as I said, both males and females, but this is actually mirrored. If we were to do these at a district level, the same information, obviously the scale is different, but the same trend is mirrored. And finally, under 15 in 2005, so 15,000. In 2010, under 21, 4,000. So we've lost 2/3 of our membership. Now, granted, this is a teenage years. There's a lot of other influences in the lives of players and people at this development stage, but we're in control of more than we realise here. Okay, and we can point the finger at other things, or we can look at what we're doing to keep these people involved. And granted, perhaps we're not capturing some of the information of players that are in universities and other environments, but still I think that the trend is pretty clear. Does this surprise you? No? Okay. So I'll keep going. We're still in the current situation here in Ontario. Competitive structure. Now, where do I start? Where do I start? I think, I'm pretty sure we're united in the fact that we know it's fundamentally flawed. Fundamentally flawed. And I think the best way to explain this and demonstrate the emphasis on winning is, and you guys and girls will know this better than me, you'll know this better than me, to reach the OYSL by under 14, parents, players, clubs, teams have it worked out. They know that from under 9, which is 8 years old, from under 9, you have to win every league to reach the OYSL by under 14. So let's drill down a little bit. So under 9, win every league. So that means at under 8, poaching starts happening. So this is where the recruitment goes on. This is where clubs, coaches, people start to go and poach players who are how old? Under 8, 7 years old. 7 years old, we start to poach players. And what are these players? What are we poaching on? What are we stealing players to make these super teams? What are we poaching on? Physical size, strength, the athletes. That's who we're going to choose, because that's who's going to. Sorry.
The kids that were born the first 4 months.
Sure. Yep. Exactly that. The players that have been born in the first 4 months of the year. That's who we're going to go and get. So what are we going to do with these players once we get them? We're going to win. So what do we do to win with those sorts of players? Because we have to win, because that's the whole emphasis of the competitive structure. We're going to play a direct style of football. Okay, we're going to knock it long. We're going to use strength and skill strength and speed. Okay, we're going to play a direct style of football to get a result. It's all going to be result orientated. So when an 8-year-old tries a drag back or a Cruyff turn in their own half, gets dispossessed, the opposition intercept and go and score a goal, what's the coach going to do? He's going to come down on this player because we're going to win. We're going to get to the OYSL. This is life and death. So this 8-year-old, what's he going to do? He's going to say, I'm not going to do a Cruyff turn or a drag back in my own half again. It's not you. I don't want to be come down on like that. So I'm just going to get it under and pass it on. I'm hot potato. I'm not going to take any risks. So You know, so what's that player what's gonna happen to that player? They're either gonna continue to progress, but they're gonna have half the tools that they should to enjoy and progress within the game, or they're gonna go, stop this, go into another sport. This is crap. I'm not enjoying this. Off to hockey, I go off to wherever I go. That's what's going to happen. This pressure that's going, as a player at semi-professional level, a centre back myself, I used to get a head rush when I got over the halfway line. I was only allowed up for set pieces. Big man, up you go, second runner, get in there. I knew my run. Otherwise, I'm not getting into the first half. I'm not trying anything around my goal area as an adult because of what will happen. Let alone we're passing this sort of pressure on and putting 7-year-olds in this environment. Okay, it's ridiculous. So this is something. This is real. This is what's happening because we have a complete emphasis on winning rather than skill development. Okay, so players they can't practice what they're learning and practice and execute in a game because the whole emphasis and the outcome of the competitive structure is wrong. So tournament trophy mentality even reinforces it. So on top of the leagues and this winning mentality, we have teams chasing silverware and medals. Okay, why? Because parents want to see it, clubs want to see it. They think that's important, and it's not. So on top of the amount of games people are playing in leagues, they're then playing, say, 5 tournaments a year. Say 3 games a day, Saturday, Sunday, another 6 games, 6 times 5, another 30 games in a season where you're playing in an outcome-orientated environment. Granted, some coaches will play in these events and have a different focus and philosophy for what they're doing, but it's not the majority. Okay, so again, you take how many games you're playing a season, put another 30 on, your training to playing ratio is completely out of whack. It's the wrong way around. And then we have, as we know, the whole competitive structure is focused on team development rather than individuals. We have geographical challenges, which results in people dropping out because they're travelling too much, too soon. Talked about rules earlier. And then we have these Terra Power rankings where we hold up the best club in the province based on what? Winning. Okay? Winning. So, again, what would be a better measure of a club's success? Would be retention. How many of your members do you keep involved in the sport? How many of your members do you pass on to the next development stage, to the district, the regional, the provincial team, the national teams? How many actually progress? That would be a better rating of what's going on within the club. So, player development obviously is intertwined here, and again, pathway, complete fragmentation. Okay, no clarity or focus. There's so many different things going on, no direction, no consistency, which is really, it's a disservice to player development because we're not giving them good advice. At the Technical Advisory Council meeting, the first one back in June, Bruce Henderson put this in a diagram. He did a really good job, and it was a bit of a light bulb moment where we went, wow, it's nuts, what we're doing is nuts. So I'll let you see this diagram, make your own assumption from it. So just to help you understand this, we've got the pyramid for play down here. Okay, so generally the club environment where the 80% of our membership is. And these different shoots here are different pathways for players to progress. So if I take this pathway on the left, this is the pathway to national honours from district to regional to provincial to national training centres through to national age group sides and national teams. So this is one pathway. This is the right pathway. Then we have a pathway to the MLS, so here in Ontario, that's TFC. So they have academies, so they have sort of some club involvement, they have academies, then they have academy teams, 17 and 19, and then there's obviously the MLS side. We also have players that go to other MLS squads and academies from within this province as well. There's the North American Soccer League where Manawa will be joining, Fury will be joining in 2013. There's also the PDL in the States, where there's 5 Ontario teams playing in the States. There's university and pathways both within Canada and in the States. It's the USL Pro. We have the USL, the W League for Women in the States, where there's 4 Ontario teams playing in the States, as well as the WPS. There's the CSL here primarily in Ontario. The Quebec Semi-Pro League, and there's talk of and work being made towards an Ontario Semi-Pro League. And then we have professional leagues in all other countries around the world. So what we've got here is a real mess. But don't get me wrong, competition is good, and we need competition. But this amount of competition is ridiculous. We need to have clarity and understanding of what's best for players and where they should go, and other providers should be understanding of what's the first port of call. If you've done it, there's a 2% talent rule out there, and again applied to all sports and populations. That 2% of a population is talented in what they do. So if we take a 10-year-old group of players, male and female, 2% of them talented. Hockey take 1.5% of that talent here in Canada. It's our culture, society. So all the other sports are left to scrap off 0.5%. Then we take our 1 and 2%, so 0.2% for soccer, and then we spread them in 20 different directions. Okay? Doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense. What we've got is salesmen here. We've got salesmen promising parents and players pathways, false pathways. Okay? Pathways that will never lead to a contract because players don't have a visa to go to that place. But parents will invest money, and significant money, to go and chase a false promise where that money's better spent here in your own backyard, investing in a regular, consistent development program. But this isn't just Canada here, it's world over. That we need to be wiser about decisions that are being made. So I think this illustrates a pretty clear point. Do you think it captures what's happening? We'll have a chance to discuss it more. Now I'll let you read this. We're going to move on. So this is the final slide here, and it takes what LTPD says here on the left and says what we currently do on the right. And I think it's a good summary of where we're currently at. We're there? People are, yours is going up. I'll take that as people have finished reading. But I think this illustrates a really clear point. So, where are we heading? What's going on? So we've talked about LTPD, we've talked about what's happening here in Ontario, now we're going to talk about the future. Okay, it's what we're all here to discuss. It's about what we talked about at the start. Now, these next statements are more high-reaching goals. We still need to drill down into the detail to put milestones behind them. But these are things that the Technical Advisory Council thought in 2020, if these goals are realised, we're doing the right sorts of things. Okay, we're on track. The right sorts of things have been achieved because it takes a village to develop a child. It takes a system to develop a player. So it's going to take time to build things to get what we need. So 6 to 8 years is what we're looking at. So again, notes. As you'd expect, a clear integrated pathway that people understand. So we talk to the hockey parents, they know what needs to be done and when to get to the NHL. We'd expect the same thing within soccer. Not just for players, coaches and referees, for everyone to reach their potential. Okay? Some, as I talked about before, potential for some is to just have fun and enjoy the game. For others, it's to progress further. Players' needs put first in all decisions. So what's best for the player? Not what's best for a club, for a person, for an agenda, what's best for the player. This is really important. Consistency and delivery of all programs throughout the province. Okay, so same things happening. GTA, Ottawa, Thunder Bay, Sudbury. Okay, not different things happening in different places. Really important. Unity and alignment of all stakeholders. Strong, credible, trusted leadership. Financial security to ensure sustainability and ongoing development. Whatever we're working towards, it has to be sustainable. We can't just say these things should happen if they're unrealistic. Really important. It speaks for itself. Clubs being the hub of their communities. I want to spend a second here because this is important. Where the clubs are so critical in the future of the game. It's where barriers are the lowest to get people involved in the game because you're in the backyard of everyone. So barriers, cost, transport, these other things are lower. Clubs need to be the hub of the community. We need to work with clubs to provide the opportunity, the best opportunity to keep players involved in the sport. I think it's critical. We need that affiliation. People to really affiliate with their clubs. Something that I don't think gets enough attention. And again, a high performance goal would be 70% of national squads and teams being made up of Ontario players. And this actually happens every now and again, but it's not consistent with different development stages. So now I'll show you a diagram. Again, you're not going to be able to read some of the information here. I'll talk you through it. It's more the concept behind it that's important that you grasp. The detail is still being worked on. Okay, we still need to progress the detail. So what we have here is a framework that's holistic. We've brought everyone in together. So to grow the game, we can't just focus on the players. We have to work with everyone. So you'll see, I suppose, the 4 different pathways. Player, so you have a community, your house league recreational pathway, competitive pathway, a talented pathway, and an elite pathway. You see the same in coaching, where there's community, recreational, and talented, referee, community, and talented, and administration as well, because it gets forgotten about. We need administrators that understand the needs of the different development stages and need to be able to deliver the game properly, because that will also help with keeping people in the sport. So this is really important. And the different development stages map through here. So we've got active start, fundamentals, learning to train, and it all progresses. So we get horizontal and vertical progression within the different sort of pathways. So coaches going to be referees, players progressing to be coaches. So we're keeping everyone within a family. We're looking at a bottom-up progression. So we start at the bottom and phase through with a new structure. But this slide is more just to paint the philosophy and the concept at this stage.
Alex,
Yes?
are you going to be able to send that to us so we can look at it next week?
Yeah, good point. What I will do is I've got one presentation to go, and then we're going to choose the key slides. We'll send them out within the next week. We've got all the registration details, so they'll be distributed that way. So priorities now moving forward. Remember, with the future, what's going to happen? Why are certain things going to happen? I talked to 3 key priorities at the start: coaching, communication, and competitive structure, vision, and pathway. Okay, so you've heard the vision, seen a pathway. There's also the competitive structure that we have to nut out there. What I want to reinforce here is, because there's mixed messages, 2012 is about communication. It's about consultation, it's about information gathering. Okay? We can't just run ahead and make changes without having the information we need to support the changes. I'll progress. At the moment, we're compiling the picture. We're going to make real progress, and Mark's going to talk to you shortly. It's nearly time out, holler him. Coaching. There's been huge strides made in coach development. There's lots of exciting new courses, and huge progress is going to be made next season in that area. Communication is something that you're going to hear a lot more about. But the competitive structure, we've still got a lot of work to do. And I use the analogy of an architect or a builder. You don't just go and bang up a house and build a house. Some builders might, but generally speaking, you wouldn't want to be in a house where that is done. What we do is we take time. Everything gets built twice. Once in concept, and then once in reality. So a builder has an architect, they draw up plans, they understand where things go and why. There's measurements taken. This window goes here, the door's going to open, that's going to hit that. We need to put another few centimetres here. What we're doing is no different. If we're going to be implementing when we're implementing new competitive structures and new systems, we need to have answers for everything that you ask us. If we can't give you the answers, we can't run out and make changes. So we need to do our research. We need to gather the information. So that's why that is really critical. So what you'll see in these priorities, and I'll let Mark go into detail in coaching, but as I've talked to, this is where you're going to see progress in 2012. Communication is another area where you will see progress. I've talked about a number of different audiences, from players, parents are critical, and I'm sure you'll all reinforce that. Coaches, club head coaches tonight, boards at a club, at a district, at a provincial level. There's all these different people that we need to connect with and educate. So we need to get to these different audiences, and we need to communicate with them in a manner that is relevant for the day and age, for that group we're trying to provide with. So a fax doesn't get to everyone these days. Okay, a letter by the mail obviously doesn't work either. podcasts and videos and these other things. We need to be sort of moving forward with how we connect with people. And there's some ideas of the sorts of things we're working towards there. Competitive structure, as I said, we need to finalise the framework. We need to pilot the new competitive structure. We've got districts here, Durham, York, Ottawa, last night, Peel Halton, who have already made strides towards implementing LTPD-based festivals. And so good things are happening. We need to gather that information and use it as we start to progress things province-wide. We need to understand operational considerations. So we might have the competitive structure, but if we can't deliver on it, if we don't know the role of the province, the role of the district, the role of the league, it's no good. We need to understand all of that information as well, because we're looking at a sort of a realignment of things. We need to do a review and work out how the youth links with the senior competition. We need to understand where we are now and where we need to get to, an impact analysis and how we get to that point. Financial sort of scenarios need to be run as well, because it's important information. We need to develop the standards, and be able to monitor those standards. We need to have different solutions for different places within. We talked about consistency, but there needs to be an understanding of the needs for different geographical areas. Then there's the rules that go with the new structure, as well as all the IT requirements. Okay, we need to be able to do things digitally and electronically. So what I'm saying is, we need to take time to get this right. And I think you'll all agree, it's better to take a little bit longer to get it right rather than to run out there and make changes, even though everyone wants everything yesterday. So there's a lot of work there, And another point is that's all falling on current workloads at the moment. Okay, it's falling on people that are already doing a full job. So we've got to work out ways how to build this case and get this information. And consultation is another priority. So linked with communication, we need to get out, and as the concept develops, we need to ask people about this. We need to get your input into it, because we're not going to get there alone. We need to get there together. We need your thoughts on, that'll work, that might not, you need to consider this. If we're not getting that information, then we're only going to hit roadblocks in the process. So we need all of your input as we work towards this. A quick slide about the competitive structure, because I know that's a burning topic for many of you. As I said, no changes in 2012. Question?
I missed one important point. If I play soccer, I need a facility, I need a sports field, soccer field.
Yes.
There's a huge lack of soccer fields in Ontario, in Toronto especially. If you want to play soccer, you need soccer fields. What is your strategy there?
Yep. Facilities is a key area identified in the Wellness to World Cup documentation. When we talk about relationships outside of the soccer family, municipalities, that's what I'm meaning. We need to be having the ear of the right people to influence facility development, have access to fields. That's happening in certain places, it's happening, but again, we have challenges. Something else to do is sort of education about how we use the field space that we have. So that's something that we will be considering when we roll out the competitive structure. There will be information and support to give guidance over some things. But some of the things you allude to, and they are challenges, we're aware of them, but we can't just flip a switch on them as well. It's sort of something that we need to work on over time.
But it's not one of your priorities, that's what I mean. If I need to play soccer, I need to have a place where I can play.
We're all playing soccer. Well, we are playing at the moment, so the game is happening, and we're mindful of it as a challenge. But the game will continue to happen, and as I said, it's not something you can just change. It's a priority, but everything could be a priority here as well. So we've had to target certain things, and as you'll see, I haven't talked much about referees. Okay, I'm getting it in the ear as well that when are things happening for us? We can't fix everything. Even the three priorities I've outlined, you can see how much work there is. So we've got to be selective and look at the resources we've got and attack them and make strategic decisions at times. It's not that it's not a priority, but it's not the first thing on the list at the moment. So when we talk about the competitive structure, phased in from 2013, it's going to be a 6 to 8 year process. We'll start year 9. No scores, no standings until players reach under 13. You're familiar with these things. As I said, this is the skeleton. We've got to put the meat, okay, on these bones. I'm just giving you what we can communicate with at the moment because we're still developing things. No promotional relegation. Skill development focus. festivals, not tournaments. District competition, year 9 to 12, provincial, under 13 up. Again, obviously there's the recreational and other competitive sort of areas underneath that, but that's the higher pathway. Appropriate practice the game ratios. LTPD recommended playing formats. Consistency. Club focus, we talk about standards driven. So there's going to be standards that clubs will meet. They're going to be objective and transparent, and they're going to be monitored as well. And we're looking at a player development league from under 13 up. That's club-based, not team-based. Okay, so clubs need to meet standards in order to play at that level of the game. Now, I'm sure you have millions of questions. We can't entertain them at the moment because we need the process, we need to gather the material, but that's what we can comfortably communicate at the moment. Thank you for your patience. So I've given you the LTPD, I've given you the current situation, I've given you the new vision. Mark's now going to get into detail on what's happening in regard to coach development. We'll then come back, 2 seconds, Tony, I'm with you. We'll then come back and get your input into everything you've heard tonight, and then we'll wrap up. But should we have a quick couple of minute breather before Mark? So 2-3 minutes, quick breather, and then we'll get into coach development.